This is my first major principal role, my first full length. This was only my second year as a soloist, so third year in the main company. So it was a lot to take in. Somehow along the way, my order of pointe shoes did not arrive for during that time, February. So 3 weeks before the show, I had like 0 shoes. And then just really being on stage is what I love most. Of course, I love rehearsing and being in the studio and figuring out what works for me, but I just love being on stage, and just the joy that it brings me and the feeling is so special. And he gives me like these eyes. He's like, oh, it's about to happen. And I was like, what? He's giving me these eyes like, you're about to be promoted. So I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. She walks out on stage, she takes my hand, and she tells the audience, Chloe doesn't know this yet, but she's about to be promoted to principal dancer.
So Chloe, thank you so much for joining me today on A Dancer's Mindset. I know the viewers and the listeners are going to be really excited to hear from you, especially because so much is circling your journey at the moment. It's super exciting and very inspiring. So thanks so much for coming on.
No, thank you for inviting me. So I'm very excited.
Of course. I'd love to start from the beginning and just hear a little bit about your journey, because I know your mother, Yan Chen, was a soloist with ABT and also a teacher at Orlando Ballet School. So you have mentioned ballet was in your blood. So tell us a little bit about how you started and that journey.
Yes, so I grew up watching my mom dance, not necessarily in person, but on VHS and on tape. So I've always just been surrounded by ballet my whole life. She put me in ballet when I was little at Orlando Ballet School, so I grew up dancing there up until I joined ABT. But even before joining dancing at Orlando Ballet School, I used to like wear her pointe shoes around the house and just like tiptoe around, even if they were just 5 sizes too big. So I grew up just doing that before starting ballet classes. But then eventually she started enrolling me in classes when I was little. And then I grew up through the school, and I trained there my whole life before moving to New York to join ABT Studio Company. But it's always been in my life.
That's amazing. So you were very much inspired by your mum, let's say. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's quite special. I don't think many people have had the opportunity to watch their mother perform, like even on VHS, and be inspired by their mum. Most mums, including mine, would just take me to ballet for sort of free babysitting,
Well, partially that was a little bit of the same thing as well. But nonetheless, it was for both of us, for me and for her.
Yeah. And you mentioned in other interviews how you initially weren't super passionate about it. Like obviously when we're very, very young, sometimes the passion comes later. When did that passion really start to ignite in you, where you thought, oh, wow, this is actually something I really want to do and pursue?
Well, when I was little, I liked ballet, kind of, but I was more interested in other sports or in school, like swimming. I really loved to swim. I grew up living on a lake, so water was always part of my childhood and growing up. So I had other things that I was more interested in. So, but she still put me in ballet, to have an after school activity. And, while she was teaching at the school, I was taking classes. So I wouldn't say I really liked it when I was that young. It was just more out of convenience to, have something after school. But it wasn't until I was older is when I started to have a passion for ballet and just loved being in the studio and dancing and performing on stage. I was probably around the age like 14, 15 years old when I started loving ballet more and more. It was when I was performing and I was put on stage, and I just started to love the feeling of preparing for competitions or for performances. And then just really being on stage is what I love most. Of course, I love rehearsing and, being in the studio and figuring out what works for me, but I just love being on stage. And just the joy that it brings me and the feeling is so special.
Yeah. So would you say that being on stage is the thing that you're most passionate about and the thing that made you want to keep going and pursue the career even more?
Yes, yeah, that's what it was. It was just the adrenaline and the excitement. I feel like, a lot of dancers do better in the studio or in rehearsal
Mm,
or as themselves, but I feel I grow more and I become better when I'm on stage.
that's great. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the better way round in a way, because ultimately that's the thing we have to be doing
Exactly.
regularly. Um, I think so. Where things started to really take a turn for you, and probably where you found the passion even more, you mentioned, the idea of preparing for competitions, and you did the finals in New York YGP. And tell us a little bit about that, because that was where you really started to get noticed, and your invitation to Prix de Lausanne,
Yes.
things like that.
So I think I was 15 years old. I competed at the Youth American Grand Prix and then the semifinals, and then I went on to New York to compete in the finals, and that's when I won this second prize in this junior division. So first of all, that experience itself was amazing. This is my first time traveling outside of Florida to compete and to be around other dancers, and I met so
Mm,
many wonderful competitors there from that experience. And from that year at the YAGP, I was invited to compete at the Prix de Lausanne the following year. So usually for the Prix de Lausanne, if some people are not aware, you have to audition basically. But through YAGP, I didn't need to do that. I was already granted an invitation to compete, so it was like a no brainer to say yes to that. So the following year, I competed at the Prix de Lausanne.
amazing. I mean, that's an amazing step up. I want to go back briefly to your training, because you have a very beautiful way of moving. That was something that really struck me watching you before things really built up and you got promoted. But when I stumbled across your videos on social media and things, I noticed your movement was kind of unlike any others. Really soft and very elegant. And I just was curious, who were your main sources of inspiration and your teachers at the time in Orlando? And yeah.
Yes, so I had so many amazing teachers and coaches at Orlando Ballet School. One, his name is Mr. Olivier Munoz. He's not there anymore, but through my training, he was working at the school. He was one of my primary coaches. And also another teacher that I've had since I was like very little, from the minute I joined Orlando Ballet, was her name was Kimberly Marsh, and she's still there. So whenever I go home, I always try to say hi to her and see her. But those were my primary coaches at Orlando Ballet School, who really groomed me and molded me into how I dance. But also a
Mm,
big person to have uh, in my growth of dancing was, of course, my mom. She really trained me from the beginning and molded me and taught me. And even now, I go to her seeking for information and for help in all my repertoire that I dance now. But those teachers and those coaches are really what shaped me to be who I am. But
mm,
even when I was little, like when clearly ballet wasn't my full passion, my mom really did try to coach me and push me. We did have our moments, because mother daughter relationship dynamic can be touch and go. But I will say we have a really beautiful relationship, and I'm so happy to have her and lucky, and I love her so much. Because it's rare to have
yeah.
mother daughter relationship that is very healthy in a way that we can work together and still be the best friends. But she really shaped me to be who I am and how I dance and how I coach, or how she coaches me.
Mm,
Um, but she was really, the way she works with me is very different, because not only do we work on technique, but we work on, just the fundamental basics of how to do dance and how to move and be on stage. But she was
mhm.
really like musicality and coordination, I think, is what she taught me at a young age, which really kept me going, and how I can is the way I dance. She put me in piano when I was little, so I really think that was super important in my training for musicality and being one with the music. And I think that's what really helps in my dancing.
Yeah, because going thinking about foundations again, your foundations are very, very strong, and again, I've heard you say that when you're on stage doing something challenging, mostly you're focusing on the stamina and the strength of it
Yes.
rather than actually the technique,
Hmm.
because all the technique's there, and so with your teachers at Orlando Ballet and your mum, would you say that the foundations, and did they really give a lot of emphasis on building from the ground up?
Yeah.
And because a lot of schools rush those, so they find they have trouble later. Whereas, again, how you move is how I feel like um, we should all be aiming for, in terms of you're looking for that technical freedom,
Hmm.
so that you can be your artistic self and grow as an artist. But yes, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what was the focus on when you were in school in those primitive years up to 15 when things seemed to really take off?
Yeah, so I mean, fundamental basics is just, I think, the most important thing. And even now, today, I still struggle with a lot of those things, which a lot of people might not believe, but it is there and it's really true, which we can get to later. But she was so advocate about that in my training because everybody's body is different, and also she doesn't know what I'm feeling. So I think a lot of teachers don't realize that not every dancer is different, or not every dancer is the same, that we all have our different feelings. Our bodies move very differently. So it's very important to work directly with a young dancer and what works for them and what their needs are, and be patient. And I think patience is the key, because when you're coaching somebody, whether they're young or they're older and more seasoned, when they give notes and different ways to approach a step, it might not work necessarily right away. And I know it can be
Yeah.
frustrating for both the dancer and the coach, but I think patience is super important, because it might not work necessarily that moment. But if you just keep working on it and keep trying, the next day it will just be slightly easier. And it's just that route is important, because you have to have patience, and also have an open mind to know that this coach is like trying to help you, and even if it feels uncomfortable or if it's not working, just trust yourself, and every day it will get a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think the patience thing goes both ways.
Definitely.
Like, patience as a dancer, that you can do it and it's just a work in progress. And then as the coach or teacher, patience that they're going to get it, and possibly different approaches need to be made as
Yes.
well. But you're right, treating everyone as an individual is really, really key.
Very, very important.
Yeah. So you went to Prix de Lausanne,
Yes.
and then tell us about the process of joining ABT, and how did that come about, and how did that feel when that invitation happened? Initially, the studio company.
So from the Prix de Lausanne, I was already a part of ABT in some ways.
Right.
I did many years of summer intensive. I think
Hmm.
before competing at the Lausanne, I did like 4 years of ABT summer program. So I was familiar with the teacher.
So they knew you as well.
Yes, exactly. I was familiar with the studios, the teachers, the organization itself. I went to see many productions during the summer, which was so fun as a young dancer. Um, so I was already familiar with ABT. But at the Prix de Lausanne, I met Cynthia Harvey, who is representing ABT Studio Company. And at the time, Miss Katie Leiden was the director of the studio company. But at the competition, after the competition ended, I was offered a contract with ABT Studio Company for the following season. So I would finish the year at Orlando Ballet School and then join ABT the next year, which I was very excited for, because that's just the next step of my career and growing as a dancer and moving away from home. So after the competition ended, I was very excited to join ABT the following year. But about 2 weeks after the competition ended, I actually got a call from Katie Leiden, the director herself, and she said that she has a spot open, and she was wondering if I would be interested in taking it. And this would be in a week, 10 days. Like, I would move to New York and join ABT. And I was just so excited, because this was everything that I wanted was coming sooner than expected. It was out of the blue. I definitely would not have expected that to happen. So my initial emotions were just excitement, adrenaline, and just all of that. So I decided to say yes. Both my mom and I, my parents, we all came to this conclusion. We thought it was why wait until next season? Just take the step now. So a week later, I packed all my bags. I moved to New York. It was just like the best experience entering into New York alone. I was so excited. I was learning so much fun rep. The dancers in the studio company at the time were so sweet and so nice and kind to me when I joined. So I just felt so much warmth from
Mm.
everybody around. So it was just so exciting. And I was so happy to finally have, not happy, but it was to have my own independence, because I've always lived at home. Every summer program I did, my mom was always teaching. So I was always with her. So I never stayed in like dorms, or I never did any of the like away camps. So this is my first time living alone. I was 16, and I just adapted super easily. And it was the best feeling to move
Yeah.
on my own and just do everything myself. So
Yeah, no, it's a big step. But you grow so much,
yes,
both in the dancing and then just personally. You learn so much about yourself, including cooking.
exactly,
You know?
exactly. Cooking with so many. I lived in a big apartment that was donated to the ABT Studio Company. It was 10 of us, or it kind of varied. Sometimes it was 8, sometimes it was 10, depending on the year. But there was a whole bunch of us living in this apartment, boys and girls, and we had like somebody that lived in-house as well to kind of keep an eye on everything. But it was an
Yeah,
experience, definitely.
no parties.
No parties. And we had like, I think it was 10 p.m. like curfew or something like that, which thinking about it now, like at the time I never really went out like past that hours anyway. And I was with all my friends. So there was like no reason really to leave, but it was just so fun and a great experience to go through. But
Yeah, it sounds fun. You mentioned it's the studio company, like that's probably where you started to really hone your craft and start to do a lot of roles. You mentioned you were performing a lot, doing many things, and the difference between the studio company and then transitioning to the main company, where you weren't doing as much initially. Tell us a little bit about the types of repertoire that you danced at the studio company, and then the transition to the main company, which obviously is again a huge
yes,
step.
definitely. So I finished the year in studio company, the rest of the season, and then I did a full year after as well. So about a year
Hmm.
and a half in the studio company. And I did a wide variety of repertoire, neoclassical, contemporary, classical works, like Balanchine works. So the duration of my studio company time, I did Giselle, I did Don Q, Tarantella, I did an excerpt from Bayader, the Padakshan, Gamzati's role, new works, so many amazing choreographers, and old works, of course. So just in the studio company, it's such a small group and we have many performances, but you're just dancing nonstop all day and performing all the time and touring. It was just, I felt my growth, my largest growth was during the studio company because this was the first time I was doing patadas, I was doing variations and codas, stuff that I've never done before. So it was a really great introduction into joining like a company,
Mm,
quote unquote. But I felt that this whole time I was really able to grow as an artist, as a dancer, grow my technique, grow everything, and work
mm,
with so many other dancers that were my age or a little bit older. And then the transition into the main company was definitely tough at first because you're so used to going from dancing all these ballets, performing, doing tech rehearsals, and then the show in the evening, and then doing the same for the next 3 days after, to going into the main company and just learning and observing, basically. Because when I joined the main company, we were doing a new ballet. I think Alexei Ramonski was creating a whole new ballet, which I was just learning. So for 7 hours a day, for a few weeks, I was just standing, watching, and observing and learning the roles, but not actually being out in the studio dancing. So it was difficult, but again, it's a learning experience, and that's just how it is when you join the main company. So the transition
mm.
was difficult, but studio company really prepared me for that because we were dancing, but they also told us this is what's going to happen when you join the main company. So we were all prepared.
That's really nice. I actually think that's a really great way of doing it, because also just hearing how you did so many things like pas de deux, coders, things that if you had joined a main company right away, you wouldn't get that experience for maybe a few years. I mean, it depends on the journey, but it's nice to know, like, if it was me, I would then be reassured that I'm capable of doing all of these
Yes,
different things,
exactly.
so when you go into the company and that opportunity comes up, you have done it before. It's not like surprise and you're doing it in front of the entire company.
Yes, yes, true. No, it was a great preparation for that, and for now,
Yeah.
doing all these ballets.
Yes, of course. So with the Ratmansky Ballet, you were the second cast, but then you did get thrown in to actually be the first cast because the main dancer was injured.
Yes, so actually, that was after the pandemic. So we
Right.
at the time, Alexei Ratmansky was choreographer in residence, so we were doing many of his ballets. So when I joined the main company as an apprentice, this was before the pandemic. He
Yeah.
was creating his new Of Love and Rage, which was a new full length, which is very complex, very many different roles. So that's what I was observing and learning before the pandemic.
Hmm.
So then during that time, pandemic hits, and we all go on lockdown, and all of that happens. But then I joined ABT after the pandemic as a quarter ballet member, and that's when Alexei was putting one of his ballets back that was created during the pandemic, and I was also understudying one of the main principal roles. And they were only going to do one cast for the fall season that year, but
Hmm.
one of the dancers got injured, and I was put in about 2 weeks before, and I was so scared and so nervous, but excited at the same time because this is an amazing opportunity, and I need to just go for it.
Yeah. So what goes through your mind when an opportunity like that comes up and you've got 2 weeks to prepare and you're performing with this main company? I mean, your capabilities of dealing with pressure and stress seem very good considering considering the opportunities that have come your way. Tell me, I want to know your secret, Chloe.
What's my secret? Well, I really
How do we cope?
how do we cope? How do we get through it? So, yes, I definitely feel a lot of pressure, taking on full length main roles, and even stuff like smaller roles. At the time, I was fresh in the company, 3 weeks into
Yeah.
the company, and have never danced with all these principal dancers. Being intimidated. I mean, they were not intimidating, but I, of course, just the nature of the situation, I was intimidated. And, being in front of the room with Alexei Ramonsky, who is just incredible, and
Yeah.
just himself is amazing. I loved working with him every minute of it. But I really take that pressure, and I turn it into like excitement, because I just get excited with all these opportunities. And when it comes down to performing, or doing full run throughs in the studio, I feel that I do get nervous, but like I said, it's more of excitement, especially if I'm just so prepared. I tend to be more stressed and scared when I'm underprepared. So that's why for every performance, I really take the time to prepare for the show and make sure that I'm ready. So I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about the technique, or if I don't have to worry about what the step is or the partnering. Um, so again, it's a personal thing, but I just never really got nervous. Of course, nervous. There's always nerves before a show, but I never really got freaked out. And I think that's always
Yeah.
been part of my personality, because I really try not to over stress about things, especially when it comes to performing. I just have to trust myself and know that I'm going to be okay. And that's like where the stamina thing comes from, because I always get nervous about stamina, but I know my body and I know myself, and I know that I can get through it if I'm just confident in my
Mm.
dancing.
Do you think your mum ever had a factor in this? Did she ever talk to you about the mental side of performing, or was it just something, do you think, that you innately knew within yourself after watching her and just kind of training with her and your other teachers? I'm just interested to know whether she had an effect on that.
She definitely had an effect, helping me and reassuring me and everything. But I truly think it really comes down to myself. And
Yeah.
I just, I just trust myself, and
Mm.
I'm not one to get freaked out. I really just try to stay calm. She definitely made a big impact of that. And I think performing a lot and getting comfortable with the stage really
Hmm.
makes a big difference. And, like I said, the studio company, performing in the studio company and just taking any opportunity to dance really makes a big difference. But I think it really just comes down to every individual. I really try not to think that pressure and stress is that's what it's all about. I just take the stage and enjoy myself and just really try, because ballet is such a short career and you just have to take advantage of every opportunity.
Yes.
So yeah.
I think it's very interesting chatting with you because obviously I've spoken to a nice handful of principal dancers now, and the common thread between them all is they trust themselves and they have a sense, like you just said, of excitement rather than crippling fear. It's sort of this like sense of anticipation for what's about to happen rather than being anxious about it. So I think this type of personality of staying calm and trusting oneself, even when there's lack of preparation, especially um, because you've done all these things before, of course you can do them again, is key. It's always great to hear different people's insights.
What's going
So
on, what they think.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because so many people, a lot of young dancers, who listen to the podcast, they're all suffering with a lot of like anxiety and self-doubt, and obviously that heavily impacts how they feel before they go on stage. um, we'll get more into that a bit later, but now tell us about your preparation of Odette O'Deal for Swan Lake. How did this come about? And I want to know every detail. How did this come about, and how did you feel when you knew that this is what you're preparing for? Again, there's obviously this weight of who's performed it before on this stage,
Mhm.
and now it's your turn. Yeah, tell
So
us about that.
So it was funny because I actually found out. So my premiere of Swan Lake Odette O'Deal was at the Kennedy Center, February of this year, 2023. So I actually had quite a long time to not only prepare, but to mentally prepare for this, because this is my first major principal role, my first full length. This was only my second year as a soloist, so third year in the main company. So it was a lot to take in. But I actually found out the summer before the season started. So if my show was February, I found out in August of the previous year. Um, so when Susan Jaffe, my director, told me I was going to be dancing this role, I was just, of course, excited and just, wow, this what an amazing opportunity. And not only was this role iconic and amazing and just so much excitement to it, but also just the trust that she had in me that I was ready to dance this. I mean, I've never danced anything like it in ABT. So initially I was nervous because, oh my God, this is insane. This is crazy. But also it was almost reassuring that I knew that she trusted me, that I could do this. So it prepared me to tackle this. So she told me in the summer. So I had about 2 months or month and a half to mentally prepare before we started rehearsing and started studying and learning, like, how I wanted to interpret her, Odette. So I started rehearsing in the fall of that year, which was, I guess, wait, what year? This is 2024. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
So
we're
wait, I'm
2024.
like
Yeah,
totally mixing my dates wrong. So I premiered February 2024, but I found out in 2023.
yeah.
So I started rehearsing in September, little rehearsals here and there, September to December, just to kind of get a feel, an introduction into the ballet, into the character. So I worked with Susan quite a bit during those few weeks that we started back, but it wasn't really my primary goal, my focus at the moment, because I was premiering a few things in the fall season, and we had Nutcracker season and then a layoff. So there was other things I was mixing with my Swan Lake
Hmm.
preparation. It wasn't until January where I really dove into it, head on. Like every hour, I was just thinking about this ballet. I like made it my whole personality at that moment, like as in for myself, because when you are approaching a new ballet, especially when you don't have experience and stuff like this, I really um, revolve my world around it because it's almost like a
Mm,
marathon, like Olympics. You have this end goal, but you have to put all your focus into that to get the product that you want. I mean,
mhm.
to a certain extent, I didn't, 24/7. I wasn't like Swan Lake, but I took a lot of my time to really focus on that and have my mind around this performance. So
Mhm,
January, February, I was preparing every day. I work with Susan one on one every day of every week, and she really spoon fed me the ballet, I would like to say. We worked day in, day out about what works for me, how I approach the step, how do I put my hand, how do I look into my partner's eyes. She's all really about connection and
mm,
chemistry within the two characters, because it's a love story. So not only is the technique super important and, lines and legs and feet, but just the connection between the two of us was just equally as important. And I really felt it, working with her. I really felt what she wanted to bring out of me and bring out of my partner. So we worked so much on that. And again, in the beginning, it took a little bit of time to, feel comfortable with it. But once you feel it and once you get a taste of how the connection works and how it kind of brings everything together, it was just so eye-opening and so exciting. And that's where the whole process just was so enjoyable because of that. But we did work every day, so many hours. My partner Aaron was so gracious; he was so patient with me. So not only was the dancer have to be patient and the coach be patient, but my partner was very patient, which was so great and so helpful. So we would do White Swan. We would just take it apart. We would do every section, every detail. We worked on it for hours, and I was grateful to have him be there. And I always knew he would have me, regardless of how off my leg I was.
I've seen some great balances, Chloe. I don't think we're off our leg that much. um, Tell me, was there any, major obstacles in the preparation? Like, were there any moments or any parts of the ballet that you found the most challenging for you? Obviously, this ballet is going to develop with you years to come,
Yes.
but in these the very debut stages, was there a moment in the ballet when you were in the studio like, oh, this part's super difficult, or I'm struggling on this?
Well, so White Swan. So it's very two different characters, Odette and Odile. And again, Susan was very prominent about having Odette be this vulnerable, innocent, naive, sad swan, and then Odile to be this like seductive siren, aspect of it. She was really wanted me to have the difference between the two of them. So I felt that Odette naturally, it came easier to me naturally, just the movement quality, the slowness, the steps, everything about it was just a bit more natural for me. Odile definitely took more time to find the character and the difference between the two of them. So for my show in February, I felt my Odile was not as strong as I would have liked it. So it was interesting, having that show, my premiere, and then having my New York debut at the Met a few months later. And I felt from the two performances, my Odiles were just two different people because I primarily focused really on the White Swan in my premiere in Kennedy Center because I feel like Swan Lake, like everyone always just focuses on the White Swan because it is so scary and so exposed. So people
Yeah.
focus mostly on that. So for the second time around, I really wanted to work on the Odile because technique I wasn't too worried about, but it was just the seduction and the character was super important. And I felt such a big difference in that show. The second show, my Odile
Hmm.
was much stronger. But I think that was the tough part for me, was approaching that in a different way. And again, also this is my first full length, so I didn't know how, like the small details, like I didn't know if I wanted to wear two pairs of pointe shoes, one for second act, one for third act. I didn't know how to like manage my my pace, like stamina wise, as a full length, because your legs are, Second act is very heavy on the body, like the port bra and your feet cramp, and it's just a bit heavier. Whether because for Odile, that is more like stamina and more adrenaline, so it's a different way to approach it. So I didn't know how to manage that until I
Yeah.
basically got to the show, because sometimes I would do second act. I do a run in the rehearsal at ABT, and then if I had a rehearsal later, maybe we can try some Black Swan to see how it would feel doing both in one day. But I never really got the full experience until I got onto stage. So that was interesting to get nervous about. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So
Yeah.
it was fun. And then I was like, do I wear two pairs of pointe shoes? Because I don't know, I like to have a little bit softer for second act, but I also don't want to wear a brand new pair for Black Swan. So it was just interesting trying to navigate that.
Yeah. Well, these are all things that, again, it's all to do with your stagecraft and
Right.
figuring it all out. Because,
Mhm.
yeah, we can do all those steps individually, but putting them together when we're already tired and then doing those fouettes on that left leg again.
All on the left leg. Especially for ABT's version of Black Swan, we do the long version. So it is all
Yeah.
on the left side. But I got through it, and it was so amazing, the whole day of just performing, and then again everything after that. So
So tell us about your debut then on the day as well. How did you feel on the day, waking up like, oh gosh, this is it.
it's happening.
Here we go.
I woke up, of course, with excitement. So it was funny. For my debut, this is like not a thing that tends to happen, but somehow along the way, my order of pointe shoes did not arrive for my during
Perfect.
that time, February. So 3 weeks before the show, I had like zero shoes, like zero pointe shoes. So I was freaking out. I was stressing. I was crying in the my dressing room, like at ABT. Like, what do I do? What's going to happen? Um, so long story short, I had one pair of shoes that I saved. When I found out like I had no shoes, I luckily found one pair. So I saved them for the show. Didn't know how they felt, didn't know if they were even going to be good, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to trust myself and trust that these shoes are going to hold me over. So I saved this one pair for the day of the show. And this was like 2 weeks before my premiere. So I had like three pairs of like half used shoes. I didn't have like anything. So up until the day of my show, I was wearing these like old shoes, like dead shoes,
Oh
and I was
God.
gluing them over and over and over again. So I did a run through at ABT, like at 890, the studios. We did a full call. So I wore a somewhat soft pair of shoes, but it was okay. Um, and it got me through. And then I get to the Kennedy Center, in DC, and I have second act tech, and I had a third act run through on stage. So both those rehearsals, I wore like extremely soft shoes. And
Wow.
I was like, this is crazy. But again, you got to do what you got to do for my performance. So for 2 weeks, I was wearing soft, like pretty soft shoes. And this is like unheard of because, dancers, their assets are pointe shoes. So I had these
Yeah.
shoes. Again, another struggle for me was like, how do I approach this one performance? I haven't worn brand new shoes in like 2.5 weeks. Like, how are my feet going to feel? Is it going to be okay? How is the cramping going to be? And I couldn't have like multiple shoes to, pick from. I had just this one pair. So I ended up wearing the same pair for the whole show. I still have them. I kept them because, that has sentimental value. So that was also one of my struggles for preparing. For my debut. So I woke up with excitement, but also nervousness about if my shoes were going to last, how it was going to feel. But turned out it was okay, and everything worked out in my favor. So the whole day was just, everybody was so excited for me. Everybody was pumping me up. The morning class, because I had a matinee show. So everybody was just in class, rooting for me. And it was just such a great experience.
Uh,
So it went by so fast, things like this always just happen in a blink of an eye. So before the show, I was so nervous, but then all of a sudden I'm in fourth act and I'm like, wow, it's almost over. So
that's amazing. I mean, the shoe story.
it's crazy.
Wow.
And
Most
it's
people
crazy.
most people would be stressed.
Mhm.
Yeah. Again, teaching you so many skills of trusting yourself.
Exactly. So this,
Trusting I can cope with this.
if I can do this in dead shoes, I should be okay.
Yeah, my core is going to work overtime
Yes.
pulling up.
Actually, luckily, I was just so in the mode of Swan, like, so I just knew
Yeah.
it was going to be fine.
But I think that does show as well how strong you are.
Hmm.
Because a lot of, you are not relying on your shoes.
Mm-mm. Rely on
Your
myself.
technique is very beautiful, very strong. Um, so you've done your performance and I'm sure it went amazing. I mean, it did. Tell us about the moment you were promoted at 22.
Wow. Yes. So at my New York debut, I woke up again with just a lot of adrenaline because for my both my performances, they were both matinees, so I didn't have as much time as I would if I had an evening
Mm,
show to mentally prepare. So performances like this, I always try to wake up as early as I can so I can have a lot of hours to prepare. You know, get to the studio, warm up properly. I have to go get my hair and makeup done before class. Just have enough time to prepare. So for my New York debut, again, I was just the performance. I was so happy with the performance. There were so many things that were better that were improved. There were things that I wish I could be better, of course. But so the whole performance, I was very happy and very excited about. Um, so I'm bowing on stage. I just finished the full length, and the audience was amazing. It was a full packed house Wednesday matinee, July 3rd, I believe. I had all my family in the audience. I had a lot of friends and family coming to watch. So I was bowing, I was doing my thing on stage, and then all of a sudden I see Susan Jaffe like in the wings, like with a mic, and I'm like, this is so like my brain didn't automatically assume. Like honestly, my brain didn't automatically assume that I was going to get promoted because we don't do that. Like ABT has never done an onstage promotion ever. So it was like I was just like, what is she gonna say? Is there like an announcement? What's gonna happen? So I look over because Art again,
corrections.
corrections. Yeah, what do I need to work on? She's gonna tell the audience this was better, this was not good. Um, so I was standing on stage. Arn's next to me. He's on my left side, and she's on stage right. So I like look at him, and he gives me like these eyes, like, "Oh, what's about to happen?" And I was like, "What?" He's giving me these eyes, like you're about to be promoted. So I'm like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." She walks out on stage. She takes my hand, um, and she tells the audience, "Chloe doesn't know this yet, but she's about to be promoted to principal dancer." So it was just like a flood of emotions. It was insane because this was the last thing I expected. The audience goes up in so much applause, everyone's standing, and I take a bow, and I was just in so much awe, like that this was happening. I was like, "Am I dreaming? Is this really what's happening to me right now?" So it was just like a flood of emotions. I took all my bows. I bowed to my partner, to Susan, to everybody. The curtain closes, and we still have our page bows, in the front of house. But when the curtains close, all the corps de ballet like come running to me, and I'm like hugging all of them because they were just so excited, and I was excited, and it was such an amazing moment. And we have a photographer. She's amazing, Emma Zordon. She photographed the whole promotion, and she took all these pictures of the corps de ballet, running to me, and I was hugging them, and it was such a great moment to have and to keep as a memory. So but then after I did my page bow, in front of the curtain, I brought Arn out, because he was a crucial part to everything because he really took care of me and was there with me every step of the way. But just everything was insane and crazy and so many emotions the whole time. And I was happy to see that Kevin McKenzie, my previous director, was there in the audience. He came backstage and hugged me, and it was just such a full circle moment. So it was
Amazing. Oh, it
a lot
must have been so special
about
to
it.
be there.
It was, and I was so happy my family was there. They all came backstage, to the dressing room. My studio company director, Sasha, was there. Stella Bear was there. My sponsors were there. I have so many friends that were in the audience that came to watch. My best friend from school, she drove from Connecticut to come watch my show. And then, me being promoted was just the cherry on top of everything. So I just felt so much love and all around from the company, from the artistic, from the audience. So, and it was fun to have the audience be like a part of this moment. They were just like with us. So
Yeah. Amazing. I think about, as young ballet dancers, we all desire to be a principal, to have that moment. And you being so young, whilst you were preparing for Swan Lake and sort of at the back of your mind, were you ever thinking about, I really want to be a principal dancer? I would love for that to happen, or were you just focusing much more on the work and on day to day being the best dancer you can? Or was it actually a goal that you were trying to very much head towards? Did you think about it?
So truthfully, of course, principal dancer is always the I wouldn't say like the main goal, but it is what everyone strives to be. And that's just how it is like in the ballet world. But again, like in my vision, my goal was to become principal dancer. But also when you become principal dancer, that's not just like the end. For me being so young, there's so much that I need to work on, not only like technically and like emotionally, artistically, and just to grow as a person because I am young. So the work never stops. And I think when a lot of people think like once you hit principal, like that's it. But no, there's just so much to achieve afterwards, And it's such a iconic title. Like you want to live
Mm.
up to it, and I want to make sure that um, I like when I dance that I need to be at that level basically. And it's a lot of pressure, and a lot of work. And it's a lot of work being, I guess, a principal dancer. You have so much to carry. You have to not only are you dancing for yourself, you're dancing for the audience, and you're carrying this full length of all these dancers in this company. So it's very important. And yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like ABT has been extremely supportive of your promotion. I often think, I don't know if every company would be like that, especially in companies where there's sort of a lot of hierarchy,
Mm.
like these people have been here longer, they expect to be promoted sooner, whereas, in places like Marinsky, if there's a dancer they like, they would use them straight away. But I wondered whether you'd experienced any of that, like, or did you feel pressure in any way thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, I'm very young and I've been promoted, that these dancers have been here a while? Has that come into play at all, or has there been a lot of general support that you haven't had to deal with any of that side of things?
So truly, only ever really felt support, and I'm saying this like I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, but
Yeah.
ABT is very special. I've heard stories, in the past, of past generations of ABT dancers, and how it works, with jealousy and young dancers moving up and being promoted or doing roles. But my whole career at ABT, everyone has always been so gracious and so kind to me and to everybody. And I think that's what makes ABT super special, is that not only are we colleagues and we work together, but we truly are a family, and that everybody has everybody's backs, and there's always support regardless of who it is and who's dancing. And that's why I love ABT, and that's why I want to stay at ABT, because not only the dancing and everything, but I just feel that the community that we've built is very special, and that everybody, we're a family, and that we are always looking out for each other. And but yes, the whole time I was working and doing roles, everybody was just rooting for me and just so nice to me. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's why
No,
it's
that's
extremely special. And only when you're inside of it, that's when you really know. From an outside point of view, you never know how companies work or how it's like. But when you come into the environment and you come into the studios and just feel the energy, it's really amazing. Whenever we do like full run throughs, I'm sure it is like this with other companies, but whenever we do full run throughs or somebody's debuting a role and we do run through in the studio, when it's finished, like the whole studio goes up and like clapping and screaming and just pure love for whoever was dancing um, in the front of the room. So it's just such a great feeling, and it's so amazing to witness and be a part of it. So.
That's great. No, that does sound, honestly, I think that's a very special experience, like environment.
Yes.
I don't think it would be like that everywhere.
Mhm.
Um, and I truly think that kind of environment, is really amazing because, I always feel like there's room for everybody to succeed.
Mhm.
And when someone has a chance, being happy for someone else who's getting success doesn't mean that you're unlikely to have your own success. And there is very much that thing of, I think, when you do get those toxic environments, it's sort of like you can't be happy for someone else because I'm not where I want to be.
Right, right.
So
There was this actually that reminded me because there was a moment when I got promoted, I got promoted on stage. So I had my day, I had my moment. But I think like 2 weeks later, we had in studio promotions, which is what we regularly do. And that day, Susan promoted, I think it was three soloists, three dancers from quarter ballet to soloist. And that day was just so, again, another very special and moment that the dancers got to experience because these three dancers really, truly deserved it. And, they did their time, they did their work. And I know three of them individually, and they're both just so hardworking, driven. And that day was just so special because these three individuals got the promotion that they deserved. And one of the dancers came up to me and was like, "Oh, like you should have been announced. Like you also got promoted." And it was just funny because like they were thinking like, "Oh, these three got their recognition. Like, oh, I should have also gotten my recognition." And it was just so sweet that somebody was like thinking of me that way. But I told them, I was like, no, I got my special day. Like this isn't about me at all. Like these three deserve their moment. Like I already got my whole performance dedicated to that. So, but it was just such a nice moment that somebody thought of me like in that way. But that was also just an exciting one.
yeah,
It was sweet. It was just a sweet moment. But I was like happy crying for all of them. It was such a fun day and great for them.
no, it sounds so great.
Mhm.
Even the vibe you get from people's social media, it just looks super fun and
Yes, we always have
supportive.
a good time. I feel like ABT is a good time.
Yeah, and you all have a lot of energy
So
in how you perform and how you dance in class. It just looks great. Like I reckon you would all uplift each other
mhm.
and um, help your peers and yourself sort of get better. Um, yeah, no, that does come across. Obviously, it probably comes across in leaps and bounds in person. So now that you're a principal dancer, have you at all? Obviously, you have that title. Did you feel any different? And have you been approaching your work differently? Have you felt like you've needed to approach your work differently because you have this status now? How have you been changing, or I want to say coping with it? But yeah, tell me more about that.
well, it was definitely I feel different, just naturally, once you hit this point in your life,
Yeah,
you're naturally going to
major.
change a little bit, but not in a bad way, but in a more of a mature way, I feel.
Yeah.
I approach roles differently, especially principal roles now. Uh, so everything that I'm learning or just being in the studio, I try to be more mature in a way because it's different and that's just like a natural thing. But
What does that look like for you, this maturity?
just, I think before, because I'm still young, I still have like
Mm.
young energy, but I try to channel that more in a grounded way, I would say, because now I have this responsibility, and that responsibility is very important and great. So, the way I work, or just even in class, just the way I take ballet class or just rehearsal. And it's more of like a mental difference, and I think it's made a big impact. And I try to approach my work in a mature way, is what I would like to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think you're very mature even saying that,
Oh,
that I know I have young energy. Like your awareness of your youthfulness and the young energy that you have is also very mature. So, no, it's great. Now that you are a principal, how has your process changed in terms of preparing physically and mentally for a role? Let's say the day of a show. Tell us a bit more about your process.
So, well, I haven't had many performances as a principal. I only had a
Yeah.
few at the Met, and they were none of like really stressful roles or full lengths. So, the only performances where I had to mentally channel differently were my two Swan Lakes in London, which was
Yes, which I did go to see.
yes, I know that's how it makes sense. Did you come to my first one or second one? It was my second, right?
It was on a
Might have been.
Thursday, I think. Or
Maybe that
no, it was
was
it might have been your first one. Saturday,
was it
maybe.
Saturday? I think that was my second one. Um,
Right. Your second one
maybe
then.
it was my second. Honestly, I can't remember. It was so much happened.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I think approaching it, well, again, I was in a different environment. I wasn't at ABT, I was guesting. So the whole experience itself, I felt like was different, because it was my first time guesting as a principal and then guest
Yeah.
full length in just a new environment. I never danced at the Coliseum before. Um, so I had to approach it in a fresh way. Um, But I think I'm basically the same. I don't think I would change anything because before performance, I always have my regular schedule. If it's an evening, I wake up. I always have to take ballet class in the morning. And then I always like to rehearse, after class a little bit just to get the body moving and to get my mind in the mode for whatever I'm dancing. And then after rehearsal, I take some time for myself, maybe go home, take a nap, or just do some little bit of movement just to so I keep my body feeling comfortable, and then I get to the theater a couple hours before to prepare. Do my hair and makeup, do my bar, do my mental preparations. So I always have the same routine, regardless of if I was soloist or principal. But it just feels different, like I said before. Performing as a
Yeah.
principal dancer. So
I've also read that you have a coffee before you go on
I
stage.
do. I love to have a coffee. So in the mornings, I'll have something. Whatever performance days, I tend to have two coffees. A lot of dancers get jittery or get a bit like shaky, but I never had that experience. So I always like to have like a little cappuccino before the show, just to keep me, even if I don't drink it all away. But it's nice to have something to sip on in between acts. Like I might need a little boost of adrenaline. So I
Yeah.
can't sleep
No, that
tonight, but it's okay. It's worth it.
yeah, I don't I think after a show like that, none of us are sleeping anyway.
I'm up.
Yeah, going
Can't sleep.
going through everything. No, it was really wonderful seeing you in person. I actually saw you on the program and I was like, I've got to book this because I've just got to see her live. And again, the thing that struck me was obviously because I spent a lot of time in Russia, I've watched the Mariinsky a lot, and you have a very nice, like I've said, soft quality to you, like a real elegance that's quite rare. But then you also have so much energy as well, and like passion and drama almost, like that you really go for things, which also really drew me in. But one thing that stood out, not just to me, but to people around me as well, was your arms.
Oh,
Your
thank
arms
you.
are very beautifully soft. Yeah. So I just had to tell you that.
Well, thank you. That's really, and it's so nice to hear. Yeah, I think Porter bra and arms, for especially for Swan Lake, is so important. But like I said, the minute I get out on stage, it's like a whole different feeling. When I have an audience and people watching me, it's not because I want to like show them what I can do, but it's like I want to be vulnerable on stage, and I finally get to show it and have people witness that. So it's like having
Mm.
a tech rehearsal or a general rehearsal always feels different than when I have my performance. But my second show in London, it wasn't as strong, I felt, as my first one, because also this is my first time doing like two full lengths like in a short period of time. So again, I didn't know how to manage that, but I felt like I did a pretty good job, having enough time to recover in between shows. But I was still happy with both shows. But I felt my first one was just a tad stronger.
No, it was great. I loved it.
Thank you, though.
I loved your variation of the Odile.
Oh yes, that was a different one.
Yeah, no, it was great. Very suspended in the pirouettes.
It was my first time doing that one, so because I was used to doing,
Yes, the
the
attitude.
attitude one, which
Yeah.
before I did this new Odile variation, I was like, oh, I miss my attitude. I miss the slow, like this very, even though it's like so painfully slow, but somehow being able to like use those moments to breathe, like really help. So before
Mm.
I was like, oh, I miss this. But then now after doing this fast one, I'm like, no, I like this one better because it's over in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, it's really fast. I mean, it's really short as well. Um, so what's coming up next for you? You know, what sort of, do you know the roles that are coming up and what you're preparing for that's upcoming
Yes.
that
So
you're excited about?
we open our fall season in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, which is usually our mixed rep. We do a lot of mixed rep in our fall season, and we actually have a new full length coming. The ballet is called Punishment.
Oh,
Crime and Punishment, and it's going to be choreographed by Helen Pickett. Sadly, I'm not in it. There's actually quite a few principals that are not in the ballet. Not really sure why, but maybe her vision. It was just she had a vision for the ballet. But I was not a part of the process. But I am excited to watch it. That's going to be the closing of our 3 weeks of the fall season. But in the first 2 weeks, we do mixed repertoire. So I'll be dancing Ballet Imperial again. I did the pas de trois ballerina last year. I premiered it last year, but I'll be doing that again. I'm in a new ballet created by Gemma Bond. She used to be a dancer with ABT and then previously with the Royal Ballet as well.
hmm.
But she's choreographed quite a few works for ABT, but I think this will probably be one of her best ones. It's a beautiful, like tutu ballet, classical, beautiful music, and the movement is it's a mix of a lot of different things. But I'm very excited for this, so I'll be dancing that, and then I'll also be dancing Sylvia Parada, Balanchine Sylvia Parada, which I'm super excited for. It's such a cute, charming, classy, like charming but elegant Parada, and it's been great working on that, and I'm super excited. So I basically dance
Amazing.
Balanchine this season. Or
That's
Balanchine.
amazing.
No,
Yes. Will you be going over the road to watch New York City
I
Ballet?
did. I've actually seen two performances of City Ballet this season already. I saw them do Piano Concerto Number 2, which is their version of Ballet Imperial. So that was so fun to watch and just have see their our neighboring company dance it. So it was great to experience that and be in the audience to watch it. But I do go watch it
Yeah.
often because I like to watch the mixed rep and see the different
Mm.
dancers and the movement quality. It's so exciting.
Hmm.
They're always on
Yeah.
the music.
Yeah.
Always
So
on the music.
they have so much,
It's
so much energy.
so great.
Amazing. Well, so much exciting things upcoming. So I guess one final question would be, because a lot of young dancers listen to this,
Mhm.
who obviously probably really are inspired by your journey and would love to follow in your footsteps. What advice would you give them with regards to mindset, approach to their work, and perseverance through tough times?
Mhm. Well, what you just said is I think is extremely important, which is perseverance through hard times. Because the ballet career is so short, and you have to take advantage of every opportunity and every moment. And we always have our good days, we have our bad days, good periods of time, bad periods of time. And you just have to be positive in those moments because, these tough times are just going to come and go. We might have seasons where you don't dance as much, where you're not doing as much roles, and that's okay because that's life. And I think just, you know, taking those time to just become better. And it's always important to be kind and to be humble. And I think that's what brings out a really beautiful dancer is, being the best that you can be. And I think that's extremely important, especially for young dancers, because I think a lot of people are just want to be on stage and, do this and just jump ahead to all those things. But I think the work and just taking the time for yourself is so important. And I want young dancers to know that and just be the best that you can be and just work hard. So,
Amazing. Actually have one more question, which would be how do you like to switch off
good job.
and relax? Do you switch off?
No, I do. I definitely do. So, like in moments where I'm preparing for our season, of course I rehearse and I put all my focus during the day when I'm at the studios. And whenever I come home, I like to do, if I'm just like, at home on my own, um, I think also part of my personality, what comes into my dancing is that I love to do, not, I wouldn't say like arts and crafts, but I'm more of like an artistic person, on that end. So I love to do, things that bring me joy. I live right next to like a color me mime, which is, like pottery painting. I like to do activities like that. Or like there was one point where I loved knitting. So I like to put my time in moments like that, even like it might sound childish, but like, coloring or drawing, sketching. I love to sketch. Um, so like even for if I'm writing like a merit card for my friends instead of buying like, a good luck card, I like to make them on my own. So I like to do those kind of crafty, artsy things. So I try to fill my time with stuff like that. I have a film camera. I love to take photography photos. I'm nowhere near a photographer. Like I would never call myself that, but I do find an interest in taking film photographs. So I
Mm.
like to just go around New York and just with my camera and go take pictures, get them developed, and I like to see the outcome of it. Sometimes I take great pictures. Sometimes I take horrible pictures, depending on the lighting and the moment. But I live next to Central Park, so I always love to go stroll over there, whether it's on my own with my friends or bring my camera just to be there on my own. So I like to do those kind of things and fill my time with stuff like that. So
That's amazing. I mean, that's much more interesting than the usual. I go to the cinema,
I I go try.
or
I do love to like go try new restaurants. I love to eat, like go to restaurants by myself and just have that time for myself, or try new coffee places, around the city.
yeah,
So I do like to get out and do those things. But
yeah. No, that's really cool. I know a few dancer friends who enjoy making pottery and things like that. I
yeah,
can imagine you just kind of you're focused. It's similar to how ballet hobbyists go to ballet class because you're so focused on that thing
right.
that your mind just clears.
Mhm.
Um, But Chloe, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
No,
It's been
it's
really,
fun and so
really,
nice.
yeah, it's been really nice chatting with you and hearing more about your journey up until now. I mean, we're only really at the beginning, but so much has happened. I'm sure so much more is going to happen, and I can't wait to watch your career and hopefully catch you again when either I'm in New York for
Please
something or
let me know
you're
if you're ever
here.
in New York. I would love to give you my dates. Hopefully, I'll be performing, but that would be
Oh,
so
yes.
fun.
Oh, so fun. Yeah, 100%. But yes, thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was so great and so amazing to speak with you. And just knowing I have so many supporters out there is just so warming to me. So thank you.
You do. You do. Oh, Chloe, thank you. I'll stop
Bye.
the recording there. That was very nice. Thank you so